Hey everyone, how's it going? My name is Jordan and welcome to JC's Anime Reviews. And in today's video, we're going to be talking about JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Part 3, Stardust Crusaders. And this is the third part in my JoJo review series. I know it's been a while. I think it's been a month since I reviewed part 2. And I know it's been taking a long time in between these parts for me to review them. Sometimes they take longer than other videos because there's a lot to talk about in each JoJo part. So yeah, that's all it is. But I'm here now, and we're just gonna go ahead and start talking about the plot, then get into everything else about it. Hey guys, I'm just pausing the video real quick because I forgot to mention something. It's that there's gonna be some spoilers if you haven't seen part 1 and 2, so if you have not seen those parts yet, you shouldn't watch this video. I'll leave links in the description to my review of part 1 and part 2 if you want to check those out before you watch this. There's also a character that I talk about at the very end that's a spoiler for later on in part 3. He's introduced much later on. Just want to let you guys know, give you guys a warning real quick, in case you hadn't seen part 3, and now I'll let you guys get back to the video. Years after an ancient evil was salvaged from the depths of the sea, Jotaro Kujo sits peacefully within a Japanese jail cell. He's committed no crime, yet demands he not be released, believing he's been possessed by an evil spirit capable of harming those around him. Concerned for her son, Holly Kujo asks her father, Joseph Joestar, to convince Jotaro to leave the prison. Joseph informs his grandson that the evil spirit is in fact something called a stand, the physical manifestation of one's fighting spirit which can adopt a variety of deadly forms. After a fiery brawl with Joseph's friend Mohammed Avdol, Jotaro is forced out of his cell and begins learning how to control the power of his stand. However, when a stand awakens within Holly and threatens to consume her in 50 days, Jotaro, his grandfather, and their allies must seek out and destroy the immortal vampire Dio, who is responsible for her condition. They must travel halfway across the world to Cario, Egypt, and along the way do battle with ferocious stand users set on thwarting them. If Jotaro and his allies fail in their mission, humanity is destined for a grim fate. So for me, part 3 is where JoJo's really started to pick up, and I really started to get into it because it introduces one of the coolest power systems in anime, at least in my opinion, which is the stands. And as I was saying earlier when I was talking about the plot, it's basically just one's manifestation of their fighting spirit, and they all have pretty unique abilities. Sometimes you'll have stand users that have like just firepower or just super strength. Then you'll just have some really weird and crazy powers, and a lot of the enemies that they fight all have pretty unique abilities that I haven't really seen before, and I think that that's what really makes this start to get a lot better with stands. The first power system or whatever that's introduced in JoJo's is Hamon to fight the vampires in part 1 and 2, but after they beat them there isn't really a need for it because the only vampire really around anymore is Dio, which they all thought was dead, obviously. If you've seen the other 2 parts, or the other part, everyone thought that he was dead, but he wasn't. And I thought it was interesting how they kind of just changed the power system in the anime completely. Like, they just kind of threw out Hamon and started using the stands. But yeah, I just thought that was interesting because most animes, they'll introduce a power system or whatever, like Dragon Ball Z, the Ki, or Naruto, the Chakra, or Hunter x Hunter, Nen, or whatever, and then they'll usually stick with that one power system and not really change it. But in JoJo's, they kind of, just because they didn't really need Hamon anymore, they changed it into stands, which I thought that was a really good idea, and I really like the stands. They're just super cool. It's one of the coolest power systems in anime, in my opinion, and yeah. So now let's start talking about the main JoJo for this season, because every season always has a new JoJo. I like that they do that they change the main character in each season. So yeah, let's go ahead and start talking about the main JoJo. So the JoJo for this season is Jotaro Kujo, and he's the grandson of Joseph Joestar, who is the main character in part 2. Jotaro's pretty cool. He's quiet, serious, and he's pretty calm when it comes to fighting, and it usually lets him come up with different strategies in order to beat the opponent. But once he's figured out how to like beat his opponent, he just completely kicks their ass with his stand, Star Platinum. I mean, it's just, he just totally kicks their ass, and like there's no other way to really like put it. He just completely kicks their ass. So Star Platinum's ability is basically super strength, and he's also very fast, but he needs to be pretty close. I believe that the range of his stand is like 5 meters or something like that. In the show, there's actually a lot of different types of stands, and as you go on, you'll learn more about them, and they'll start calling them like a close range stand or or far range stand, and there's all these different variations of them, but his is a close range one, and if you step into that 5-meter range, you're pretty much fucked because his stand is just really strong and really fast, and it's just awesome. I love Jotaro. He's one of my favorite JoJo's in the whole series, and he's probably my favorite character in part 3, and I just really liked him. The next character is also one of my favorite JoJo's, and that's Joseph Joestar, who was the main character for part 2. But in part 3, he's a lot older, and he has a new ability, which is his stand, Hermit Purple. And Hermit Purple basically allows him to produce these thorny purple vines, which can make predictions through electronic equipment such as Polaroid cameras or TVs, although he has to destroy them in order to get the prediction from it. He can also swing with them and protect himself with them. He can also still use Hamon, which was his primary ability in part 2, and he can channel it through the Hermit Purple's vines. I actually like Joseph in part 3 better than in part 2, and I like how in this part he'll swear, but in English sometimes, and it's just really funny. Like, here's an example of him swearing in English. So yeah, I really like Joseph this season. I think that he's an awesome character, and he's one of my favorite Josephs. He's one of my favorite JoJo's, sorry. But yeah, I really liked him, and I think that he's really funny and just a really cool character in part 3, and I really liked him in part 2 as well. Now moving on, the next character I'm going to talk about is Mohammed Avdol, who is a fortune teller from Cario, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. He's introduced as Joseph's friend in the first episode where he fights Jotaro with his stand Magician's Red, and this is actually the first fight we see between two stands, although I believe that it was pretty short. It was only like 30 seconds or something like that, but it was just kind of cool. It was the first time we got to see two people with these abilities actually fight, and it was kind of cool, and I really liked it. I like Avdol. He's not my favorite character, but I always thought that his power was kind of cool, and I liked how it was just very simple. He just shoots fire, and it's nothing like super complex or whatever, although what I do like about this show also is that at first the stand abilities seem kind of simple, and then they get more and more complex as the show goes on with the more enemies that they fight, and I just thought that that was really cool, and I really like the variation of all the different stand abilities. There's a few more characters I want to talk about, but the next character we're going to talk about is Kakyoin, and I believe he's actually the first enemy that they fight, but what they discover is that Dio put a little piece of his flesh on their forehead, and basically what that does is it kind of has these tentacle things that go inside of their brain and kind of mind controls them, so it makes them do stuff that they don't want to do. So at first he is an enemy, and then they discover that and they find a way to take it off, and then he ends up becoming good. And I really like Kakyoin, and the stand that he uses is pretty cool too. Its name is Hieroplant Green, and with this stand he can unravel its body to climb inside of people's bodies to control them, and he also uses like a long range attack called Emerald Splash, which is kind of cool. It's just like a bunch of different emeralds shooting at people, and it kind of looks like water, and I just think that the way that they animated the move I thought looked really cool. Kakyoin I actually really liked. He's not my favorite character, but I still think that he's a really good character, and I really liked him. The next character is one of my favorite characters in the whole series, and his name is Jean-Pierre Palanorf, and he's another enemy turned ally because of the flesh bud thing that he had that Dio was using to control him, but once they destroy that, he ends up being on their side. And Palanorf joins them to avenge his younger sister, who was murdered by a man with 2 right hands. Palanorf uses the stand Silver Chariot, which takes on an appearance of like a knight wearing armor, and he wields a rapier. His stand excels in fast swordsmanship and close range fighting, and he can also take the armor off of his stand to make it move a lot faster, which I thought that was really cool, and I think he does that in the first fight that he's introduced. When he fights, I forgot who he fights, I think he fights Avdol. And I really like Palanorf. He's funny, goofy, but he can be pretty serious when he needs to be, which I really like that about him. And I just really liked him. I liked the way that they wrote him, and I just thought that his character was really good, and he's one of my favorite characters throughout the whole series, I think. There's another character I want to mention real quick, but he's not introduced until a lot later on, so if you haven't seen the second half of Stardust Crusaders, which is, I think it's like after episode 25, then this is spoilers for this character because he's not introduced until much later on. So if you don't want to know anything about this character, then stop watching it. And the character I want to mention real quick is Iggy, and he's a Boston Terrier who uses the stand The Fool, which can manipulate sand and dust. And he also likes coffee bubblegum. I really liked him, even though he doesn't talk because he's a dog. I still thought that he was a really good character, and I just really liked that dog. He's probably my favorite dog in anime, although I don't know too many animes that have dogs in them. But yeah, I just thought that Iggy was really cool. I really liked him. And yeah, there wasn't really much else to say about him. Just wanted to bring it up and mention how I really liked Iggy, and I thought that he was a good character, even though he doesn't really talk. Until there's one episode where he does, which I think is really, really cool. And yeah, he's just an awesome character. One thing that I feel that this anime does really well is that it makes it feel like the characters are constantly in danger, because almost every episode they fight a new stand user, except for when they do like the 2 to 3 part episodes focusing on one enemy that they're fighting. But every episode the danger escalates, and the stand abilities and strategies that the enemies use get more and more difficult to deal with. And what this does is that it makes the characters have to constantly be looking over their shoulders, and they don't really get a time to rest, and I love it. But when I first watched part 3, I felt that the episodes seemed really repetitive, because it was just like they're fighting enemies after enemy, and it was just like, when are they gonna get to Dio? And it just kind of felt like filler episodes the whole way. That was the first time I watched it, and the second time I watched it, I really liked it, and it made the ending of the whole show, or that part, really pay off and really feel worth it. Because I feel like if it wasn't super repetitive and they weren't fighting a new and like unique stand user like every episode, it wouldn't be a very good series if it was just like focusing on a handful of villains. Like part 1 and part 2, there's either like one villain and like a couple other bad guys. Like part 2, I think there's 4 bad guys or something like this, but in this one, like every episode there's a new enemy, and I just think that it's awesome, although it could seem really repetitive for some people watching it. But I do think that it's really good and definitely worth the watch, and I really enjoyed this part. So I'm gonna give JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Stardust Crusaders an A. Nice! So I hope that you guys enjoyed that review. I finally did the part 3 of JoJo's. I know that it's been a while. Sorry about the wait. Hopefully part 4 won't take as long. I'll be trying to work on it soon. I have a video that I want to do soon that I'm really excited to do. That's something that I'm really excited to review, and it's not anime, and I'm looking forward to that. So hopefully maybe after that I'll be able to work on part 4 and try to get that out soon. There's 5 parts, so hopefully we can do that. So yeah, I hope that you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know in the comments below what your favorite JoJo part is, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.